Hey, how you doing? I'm Gary Dawson with another Benchworks podcast. Today we're going to talk about custom design, making custom jewelry with retail clients. This information was originally put together with the intent of a market within the jewelry industry for people that do custom design or are thinking about doing custom design or are interested in the custom design process and how I approach it. But I think it could be interesting to people that are considering having custom design work done and see how we look at it from our side of the bench. So let's go. As a goldsmith specializing in custom work for over 50 years, I help people create objects that symbolize life's precious moments. Love, spirituality, commitment, loyalty or affiliation, a connection with nature, and a myriad of additional human priorities. In my work, I attempt to bring meaning to the objects I make through the design process and the relationships I build with clients during the process. Many goldsmiths hesitate to work as closely as I do with clients, which is understandable. To attempt to translate the dreams, hopes, or memories of another human being into a three-dimensional object is to invite a fickle intimacy that can vaporize as quickly as it forms. If it works, you're a hero of the moment. If for any reason it doesn't, from gem damage to flawed design to failed time frame, you'll be the bad guy for eternity. I started to say GOAT, but now that means greatest of all time. And that's not what I'm talking about if the project fails. The trick to remaining the hero is knowing your capabilities, opening the lines of communication between you and your clients, developing a design process that works for both you and your clients, and finally, establishing a pricing system. I'll talk a little bit more about the pricing system later in the presentation. This information was first put together, first compiled for a published article in AJM Magazine, now known as MJSA Journal. But I presented this PowerPoint or different versions of this PowerPoint many times over the years at different industry events. Stick with me, I hope you enjoy it. The opening of this article told the story of a couple that met while working as students on an archaeological dig in southern Mexico. One day late in the season, they were spending some time together by themselves at a ruin that had an interesting pattern on one of the rock walls. As their day wore on, the two became mutually aware that the interest all of a sudden had become more focused on their developing relationship than the dig. As evening fell, they found themselves still talking, perhaps more intimately, until as moonlight fell across the area, they kissed. Their first kiss happened to be near the patterned ruined wall, and the pattern on that wall came to hold some special meaning for them. When I first met them, they were newly engaged and just kicking tires for rings. As we talked, I showed them some of my work, and I mentioned my specialty of custom design and how we could work together to come up with a ring design that might hold more meaning for them than something just off a commercial shelf. When I asked if there was anything that particularly symbolized the relationship, they both immediately said the wall. With the help of a photo they had taken that day, we were able to recreate a stylized version of that wall pattern and turn it into a ring band design for them. It was cast in white gold to symbolize the moonlight present during their first kiss. Now that sort of work is what just gives me chills. It brings you back to the process time and time again. So, is doing custom right for you? Hopefully by this example, you can see how rewarding custom work can be in an ideal circumstance. But there's more to the story. I've mentioned the fickle intimacy. Here are some of the ways that can manifest. The cons of custom work are many. Client expectations are usually very high. You'll lead them to believe that their vision can be realized, and then it becomes your task to blend their vision with the reality of what's actually possible with metals and gems, and then within your skill set. Indecisiveness can be a sticking point at any time during the process, from choosing gems to a single design character. One of the things you will have to learn is to gently pull people past an indecisive moment. Fortunately for me, with an educational background in psychology and anthropology, I remain fascinated by couple dynamics. I think the successful custom goldsmith eventually develops the ability to do a little bit of custom counseling. It takes time to work through custom design process, so short time frames can be problematic, and pricing can be all over the board. It's hard to come up with a pricing plan that is fair for both you and your clients, and I will share more about that later. But the pros. I have to say that for me, as I said before, chills up and down my back, there's nothing much more satisfying than successfully completing a custom job. The irony of difficult pricing is that it makes it pretty much your call. Remember, you are the only one in the world that can conceptualize and finish a project just the way you would do it. Price accordingly. Add-on sales, including diamonds, colored gems, engraving, and a myriad of other services, are only limited by your imagination. And the loyalty is truly beyond belief. If you can complete the initial custom job to the client's satisfaction, you'll very likely have a client forever. Not that you can ever become negligent in the relationship, but with modest effort, you can easily retain clients. So, how do you start? With the fundamentals, of course. So the first thing to do is ask yourself, what are you best at? Do you enjoy pave, channel setting, bezels, complex goopy designs, or simple elegance? Do you prefer casting or fabrication? Do you have CAD capabilities? Know your strengths, for these will become your direction and how you will direct your clients. Are you horrible at any of the above? Are you a horrible stone setter, for example? Or would you not even want to think about doing vitreous enamel? Or on the other hand, you may ask yourself, what processes that are not in your current realm of exercise would you be willing to explore? And can you learn that process within an acceptable time frame for your current client? So reputation, reputation, reputation. Honesty, integrity, and communication. These are the prime directors. Your reputation at everything, and it starts with honesty with your clients about your own limitations and preferences. The clearer you communicate right up front, the stronger your reputation will be. Better to lose a commission by turning it over to someone more capable than to lose even a fragment of your reputation by struggling through and botching a job. If you prefer graver setting to channel work, as I do, it's entirely fair to steer your clients toward graver work. And it would be compassionate to direct those who insist on channel setting to your goldsmith buddy across town who excels at that and enjoys doing it. As human beings, we'll all fail occasionally, though. The misplaced project, the broken stone, the impossible time frame. You'll find that most people can be very forgiving if you simply pick up the phone and let them know what's up as soon as something like that happens. Don't wait until an hour before the wedding to let the bride know that her wedding ring won't be done in time when you knew it a week ago. So honesty and integrity in communication also means to be able to tell your clients when they're being unreasonable. Some clients are just plain difficult. Some are difficult from the beginning, some become difficult during the process, and some come back to haunt you. But if your communication is good and your intent is intact from the beginning, even when the going gets rough, as a pothole dirt road in the pouring rain, you'll always have at least the leg of your integrity to stand on. Once they've identified your skills and preferences, the next step is applying them to the creation of something that works for the client, yet does not sacrifice structural integrity of your own sense of aesthetics. Some prospective clients have a very definite idea of what they want. In those cases, it may be a simple matter to decide if your skills and design preferences match your client needs, but it's not always that easy. Often you'll need to take an active role in helping them to discover what kind of piece will fit their lifestyle, their emotional needs, their budget, and their aesthetic sense. So how do you do that? Being a psychic might help, but honestly, good listening skills may be just as useful. One way to develop your listening skills is by paying attention to how your clients are telling you things. You can develop a sensitivity to the various ways that people communicate, which can give you a handle on how to most effectively communicate with that particular client. People respond to a variety of stimuli. Sight, sound, and touch affect individuals in different ways. It can be helpful to determine which type of stimulus your client may best respond, as that information may prove useful as you communicate through the design process. Often a preference will emerge spontaneously. A client expressing something like, "I really need to see things," can signify a visual disposition, whereas a comment like, "Let me describe to you what I want," can communicate a verbal disposition. When a client does not volunteer this information, you may need to prod just a little bit. One thing that helps me with visual clients is my picture portfolio, a photographic record of work I've done over the years. These days it will likely be digital, but when I had a store, I had a small sitting area where clients could peruse various albums I left in the space. I encourage clients to view the portfolio not necessarily with the idea that they will pick out a piece that they see there, but to begin to recognize styles or elements of design that they are attracted to. In this way, we can often find part of something in the portfolio that could be the beginning of an entirely new design. A stone setting technique and a design concept, or a combination of alloys, may serve to establish some important beginning parameters. If a client or couple seems to have verbal communication style, I sometimes present the design process as one of elimination instead of the building process. Sometimes it is easier to know what you don't want rather than what you do want. With this in mind, I may ask my clients a series of either-or questions, such as, do you like bulky or more delicate things? Do you favor swoops and curves or lines and angles? After a series of 5 or 6 questions, we may not know exactly how a design will look, but we know enough to establish a design direction. For the more tactile, a designer goldsmith might keep an assortment of interesting things on his or her counter: a feather, a rock, a seashell, a glass cube, or other objects with specific physical characteristics. By asking clients to pick one of those objects, or by simply observing your reactions to the pieces as he is consulting with them, the goldsmith gets clues as to what might be pleasing to them in a piece of jewelry. Any of these forms of communication, some bold, some subtle, often in combination with each other, and even more subtle messages, such as those employed in neuro-linguistic programming, such as breath matching, etc., can be used to discover or gain insight into a client's personal taste. But what happens when those tastes compromise your design integrity? Picture a client coming into your store with a description of a ring they saw in a competitor's window and saying, "Can you do that for me? Can you do it cheaper?" The short answer is unequivocal. You must tell the potential client that if he or she wants that design, they'll have to go buy it at brand X. As a designer who is dependent on my creative ability to make my living, I'm very sensitive to issues of copyright infringement. There is, however, a longer answer that you may want to consider, which can turn that situation back into your favor without compromising your integrity. First, ensure that the client understands that in no way will we attempt to reproduce another designer's work. But next, encourage them to describe what is it about that design that they find appealing. I see no unfairness using these descriptive elements in the communication process. If they like your work, if they like you, and you can make them understand that whatever evolves will be unique, not a reproduction, then perhaps you've got a job. Make it clear that you have a reputation to uphold and an obligation to the industry to remain true to your own creativity. Once you've established an open line of communication with your client, you can begin to actively involve the client in the design process. Each designer's preferences will vary, but there are a few standard methods that you can try to get the client enthused about the creative process from concept to final finish. Counter sketching can be an important tool in some cases, but personally I seldom use it. beyond the simplest line drawings during the initial consultation when I try to establish design direction. I have thought that my own limited drafting ability makes the client feel more inclined to pick up the pencil as we explore design possibilities. I find that by unabashedly sharing with them my limited drawing skills and encourage them not to be intimidated, I can get useful information from their scribbling. Sometimes just a single curve can convey an idea. While some designers prefer to do more sketching, I think and work best in 3 dimensions. I was always a real fast wax carver, and it cost me more time to translate my thoughts to an accurate 2-dimensional drawing, only to have to convert it back to 3 dimensions in the object. Because of this, most of my actual design work was originally done in wax, but now, of course, for the last couple of decades, I've embraced the world of CAD. I think CAD does give you an advantage in custom design, though, because it allows you to easily show a client what a piece is going to look like, rotate it around the screen, and on and on. But then, of course, I sell and teach CAD, so maybe that's just my bias. Because the intermediary stage of producing a 3D model, lost wax casting is my preferred way to generate most of my custom designs, allowing the client to preview the wax model prototype or the resin model prototype is a great way to continue the communication process. When carving, I would normally use a hard carving wax and then can embed any gem selection into the model. This provides the client with an example of their design that they can actually hold, and if not too delicate, put on their finger. I explained that through the magic of lost wax casting, what they see in the wax or resin model will be nearly exactly reproduced in the finished piece of jewelry, but that the dark, non-reflective wax or the non-reflective resin in the more contemporary case, that it often makes makes the object seem more visually bulky than a polished metal object. By encouraging the client to be critical during this stage, I accomplish 2 things simultaneously. I ensure that our communication up to that point has been accurate and successful, and I lock out the possibility of having the client backtrack the design once it is cast and finished. Sometimes I have to work hard during the design stage to get it right for the client, but I very rarely have problems after a final approval of a model. Occasionally, I will make 2 or more models for a single client. I find this a productive way to render a project for several reasons. If the client is potentially difficult, the multiple choices offered can help move them through the process. Sort of like asking a difficult teenager, would you like to vacuum the carpet or do you want to wash the car? Either way, they've done a household chore. And let's not forget serendipity. Some of my best line designs have come from rejected designs that I produced for my clients. Not all designs can be accomplished by the lost wax process. Sometimes fabrication is the only way to achieve a particular look or feel. In these cases, I may do a little more sketching or provide computer-generated renderings of my ideas. I still try and involve the client to the fullest extent possible. Most fabrications can be done so that I can allow the client to view the process in stages, building the shank of a ring separate from a gem holding device, for example, and showing the client how they fit together before actually assembling them is one example of how this can happen. So, pricing. Okay. First of all, let's say I require a deposit. Always, or almost always. More about this. I require a deposit to move the project beyond the initial consultation. This will quickly weed out any insincere attempts to use your design ideas or skills and then perhaps move them to another designer. It also helps prevent wasting your valuable time on something that won't pan out. Of the times that I've not enforced that policy for friends, good clients, or the occasional stranger, there's always been a much higher incidence of things not going well. Keeping this policy not only makes your cash flow work better, it seems to ensure a smoother flow through the entire project. It's a matter of being professional. My average deposit is half of the estimated project cost, but I'm flexible about the amount. I don't mind somebody making payments on a project right up until they pick up the finished piece. I offer a full no questions asked refund of the initial deposit until I have a go ahead on the model, on the prototype, either the CAD or wax model. I find this policy to be a great reassurance to the client or potential client that I will work very hard to satisfy them in the design of their new piece, or that we should not end up communicating real well. They will not be stuck in an awkward situation. Remember, the client is usually trusting you with something very important to them. This policy demonstrates a confidence on your part that goes a very long way to make the client feel comfortable. That confidence is transferred to the client, and that confidence in your abilities can be invaluable. I think that in my 50 years of designing for people, I've only refunded money on a few occasions. And probably half of those occasions, it was me firing the client. Don't forget that you can choose to refund the deposit too. Sometimes you will run into a client that is just impossible to work with. And there are a variety of reasons for this. Unrealistic expectations in the nature of the project, the time frame, or your abilities can all lead to difficulty in a transaction. And sometimes you will encounter someone that just ends up grating on your personality or sensibilities. It helps to be optimistic and flexible in your relationships with your clients, but I found that I don't have to tolerate abuse to stay in business. If you do fire a client, try to do it more gracefully than this, because they will tell their friends. Here's one example. The lopsided love scenario. I've seen this enough times that I can tell you it does happen. maybe more frequently than you might imagine. One partner seems delighted to work with me and easy to please, while the other partner remains aloof and completely unresponsive. I have revised and revised and revised the design at times, the one partner loving each iteration, while the other just can't be pleased. I allow for the fact that it can be a personality conflict between the unresponsive partner and myself. But after taking this reoccurring scenario personally for many years, I came to believe that there could also be something else going on. And that was that the recalcitrant partner in the couple was not sure that he or she really wanted an engagement ring or even the commitment at all. They didn't have the skills, maybe, to communicate their angst to their potential partner. So it came out towards me and the ring I was creating, the visible symbol of the relationship. So again, you can take the initiative and fire a client. Try and keep more than you fire, but the prerogative is yours. So pricing and policies. At some point early in the custom inquiries, you'll often be asked, what will this cost? I'm not always able to answer that question right away. I may need to know more about the project before committing to a price. Sometimes the best I can do early on is tell my clients how I price my service and materials. Determining a fee can be one of the most difficult aspects of custom design, and I think it's easy to undervalue the service. To be able to manifest a physical representation of a memory, an event, or a commitment is a practice that rightly deserves compensation. Note my reference to practice, as in medicine or law. Think professionalism. In fact, my experience tells me that to some extent, compensation for these types of objects is almost mandatory, in that fair compensation has a way of making that item much more important in its symbolism. Every artist has his or her own way of calculating fair compensation. One local designer I know charges a small amount for design work, for example, but his per gram price for gold is sky high. In my mind, this is not only maybe a little deceptive, but also devalues the service that deserves to be held in high regard. I favor a format of calculating a fair yet competitive compensation that makes it clear to the client what they're paying for. I prefer to price the materials I use just as I would any other inventory item in my shop, and price my design services high enough so as to make it valuable. I also keep the design fee separate from other labor, such as stone setting or special alloying or metallic alloys. So in my mind, I'm going to ad-lib this part. You probably can tell I've been reading a lot of this because I can't remember everything. But everything I'd like to say in this presentation. But so I have evolved like custom design categories. And in fact, I don't know if I'll be able to remember them exactly, but MJSA and the Council of Custom Jewelers, of which I was part of for a while, um, uh, came up with the definitions of custom design. There's full-on custom design, which I do most of, and then there are two other levels of custom design. So, for example, if custom in this case is just a simple band with a couple of initials on top of the band, I price that sort of at one level. And then if it's what I would call maybe a formula piece, it's something that's not too unlike things that I've done in the past, or something too unlike that you might be able to find in any jewelry store, then that's another pricing level. But then we're going to customize it for them with their gemstones, and maybe add elements of design that would be specific to them and their relationship. And then so the three levels, very simple, sort of a medium level and a high level. And so that's usually what I do. The simpler you can keep that, the easier it becomes for you to be able to communicate this. And I think the easier it becomes for your client to be comfortable with the pricing process. So I've developed a flat fee pricing format, as it seems to be the fairest and most predictable for me and the client on the long run. Some may argue that it's fairer for the designer to price by the hour, but for me, it seems to impose time restrictions on a process that I consider somewhat sacred. A flat fee, on the other hand, is easy for the client to understand and gives the designer the ability to go the extra mile in the case of a design problem without creating financial problems or maybe discord for his or her client. And it gives the client an accurate upfront picture of what the final project will cost. To do this successfully, I have to gamble a little bit. The answer I've come up with is to price my design service such that I rarely lose in that gambling process. I like to average out, personally, about the same per hour as my lawyer friends. So custom, to start wrapping this up, is not always about commitment rings and couple dynamics, however. Sometimes I get to do really neat projects that commemorate other things than personal relationships. Memorable events can be a big part of custom work. Also, I've had a lot of fun doing custom logo stuff for organizations and people in the past. So we're wrapping this up. Thanks so much for viewing. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if so, please give me the big thumbs up and consider subscribing for more useful content. I hope you found this useful, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot.